In my last video on this channel, I talked about why, overall, I think that Westside Conjugate is probably not the best choice for raw powerlifters. I still stand by all the points I made in that video. I see many flaws with that system that make it, in my opinion, an inferior option to train lifters like those. However, I don't want to misconstrue this as saying that the system doesn't work at all, or that it doesn't have valuable pieces, or that I dislike it on some kind of personal level. Again, I've been to Westside, I've met Louie, and I got to pick his brain, and I respect the hell out of what he and the rest of those lifters were able to accomplish in their time there. It's hard for me to think that it will ever be replicated like that again. So that being said, today I wanted to make a video about the 3 things I really like about Westside and the lessons that we as lifters today can take away from it. Let's get into it. So right off the bat, the first thing that I really like about Westside is the emphasis on accessory work and of attacking personal weak points. Louie famously said that the barbell competition lifts comprised only 20% of what they did in the gym, and the other 80%, the overwhelming majority, was comprised of bodybuilding-like accessory work, specifically for hamstrings, stuff like reverse hypers, lat work, and triceps. And this wasn't just a blanket prescription either. It was specifically tailored to the muscular weaknesses of the individual athlete. So no 2 lifters at Westside did Westside exactly the same way. Just take a look at some of the videos or pictures of Westside lifters back in the day. Today, people sort of laugh about the stereotype of the out-of-shape, fat-equipped powerlifter, but that's not what you see at all. These guys valued muscle mass. This is hugely important for the lifters of today, and arguably even more so than it was for Westside, because we've seen the rise of raw powerlifting, where muscle mass is more important, and drug-free powerlifting, where muscle mass is harder to come by. I don't necessarily advocate for the 20-80 model, but treating your accessories with a high priority and using them to attack your own individual weaknesses is hugely valuable. The second thing I love about Westside is the focus on intention. A lot of the time, it's easy to find yourself falling into the habit in training of just getting through it, just getting it over with. Completing the work on your program is the most important thing, don't get me wrong. But those of us who've been around the block can tell you that there is a huge difference in the long-term results of someone who just comes in and goes through the motions and ticks boxes, and someone who actively comes in each training session and puts their all into the execution of each and every individual facet of the program. In point of fact, training hard, in my opinion, has become immensely undervalued in powerlifting today, especially since the rise in popularity of more sub-maximal training approaches and the RPE system. Not to say that either of those things are bad, I think they're both insanely valuable, but it is true. That was one of the great things about Westside though. There is simply no room for just going through the motions. Every single week, actually twice a week, you are expected to work up to a maximal effort attempt, or something very close to one. That forces you to be mentally present, aggressive, and deliberate in your actions, or it's not going to happen. Even on the speed work days, the dynamic effort method meant that you had to put maximum effort into that barbell to move it as fast as you can, even when the weights were lighter. And that is a valuable lesson that I think gets lost on all of us from time to time. In the end, trying harder each and every session is really what it all comes down to. And having a system that forces you to do that, pretty ingenious in retrospect. And finally, the third and I think most important thing that I love about Westside is the team atmosphere and the buy-in. At the end of the day, the success of Westside had little to do with the program they were running, in my opinion. Those guys could have been running the most rudimentary slapstick program in existence, and I think they still would have been great. There is something incredibly powerful about being a part of a team environment that pushes each other and brings out the best in each other that I think is somewhat lost in most of powerlifting today. While today we might walk into a powerlifting gym and see lifters working on an abundance of different things, back then at Westside, Monday was max effort squat day, and that's what we're all doing together. Not only did every single one of those lifters want to be the best in the world at what they did, but they all 100% believed in Louie Simmons, his leadership, and the program that he had them doing. And that level of buy-in, of camaraderie, is something that I'm not sure will ever be replicated again. The closest I've seen, now I live in Nebraska, and I've coached the University of Nebraska powerlifting team for a long time now, and we've come up in the shadow of Midland University, which, if you aren't familiar, is essentially the west side of collegiate powerlifting. So I've seen this firsthand, and I would argue that, at least in large part, the monumental success of Westside and of Midland has a lot less to do with the coaching or the programming or the recruiting, and it has everything to do with the team and how much they can elevate each other. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching. I'm probably done talking about Westside for a little while anyway, but it just felt right to make this video after the last one I made and the response that video had. If you have questions about powerlifting or suggestions for what you'd like to see me talk about next, please leave them in the comments, and I promise I will get back to you. And until then, happy lifting, and I'll see you next time.